Hey guys, Corbin Hostler here. This week, I'm going to do something a little different. Typically in this series, I go and I find decks that have done well and are sort of making the rounds and are popular, but haven't really caught on yet. This week, I want to try something a little different. Rather than go find an existing deck, what I've done is it started with an idea, and this is sort of you get to brewing, and this is sort of how decks take shape. And I've played some of my own brews on the stream before, and I have more lined up for the future. But this is one of those things that you just sit down and you say, I really want to try this because I think that this combination is good together. And then you build a shell around that, and then you test it, and that's how you come on ideas. And that's how something like the Abzan Coco shell gets hashed out over time, et cetera, et cetera. So the shell with this week's article is that obviously having collected company at the end of somebody's turn is insane. It's great value. We all love to do it. Of course, the other thing is what if, it's not good, or what if, they do something else and now you have to play a removal spell instead of your company, etc. So Cryptic Command costs 4 mana. This does everything. Imagine passing the turn with both Cryptic Command and Collected Company up, and you get to choose between the two. So that was where the genesis of the deck came in. Obviously, the mana in a deck like this is going to be rough. So, we're playing blue, we're playing green, and you always have to play white in these decks. In these Collected Company decks, because you just get really good cards and path and etc. So that puts us in band. What we have here is a bunch of cards that essentially make the mana work. You have to be very careful to fetch for your blue sources, so you have the 3 blue for Cryptic, because it's obviously a stretch, and this is not easy on the mana. I mean, we're playing Cryptic Command in our Eternal Witness deck. So, it's certainly not easy to do. But it works. We have 8 mana dorks, and because we have 8 mana dorks, we can count on having one pretty consistently, which means we can run a bunch of 3-drops in band. Obviously, the 2-drop spot, we're playing 4 Voice of Resurgence because it's extremely good. So we have our 12 1-drops that are going to be common in a deck like this. We have 4 Voice of Resurgence because it's very good. One of Crystallic Pridemage in here just for a little bit of, you can sack it to get an artifact or enchantment off the board, and it gives you a little bit of versatility along with the Eternal Witness. Just, some one-ofs that you can play because you have access to Collecting Company and do stuff like that. Now, the other one that comes into play that's kind of sweet is Aven Mimeomancer. This is a card you may not have seen much. It's from Alara Reborn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a feather counter. It's got to be one of the better counters in Magic, right? A feather counter. You can put a feather counter on target creature. If you do, it becomes a base power and toughness 3/1 and has flying. It does not remove its other abilities. So, Rock's War Monk, another one that is, I think, criminally underplayed in Modern. This card's great. 3/4, you can play it on turn 2 or survive a lightning bolt. It has a lifelink, which is relevant in a ton of matchups. But anyways, you can make it fly. That's very good. Obviously, you wreck its power toughness, but you do make it flying. That's relevant a lot of times. More importantly, what it does is it turns your Birds of Paradise and your Noble Hierarchs into threats in the late game. So if they kill the rest of your guys and you don't, have infinite threats, you have voices and a bunch of 3-drops. If they kill those, well, if you were able to get this down or company into it, at least you get to turn these into threats. Company at the end of the turn, you hit a Mimeomancer and a Noble Hierarch. It's not very good. But then all of a sudden, it's turning Noble Hierarch into a 3/1. That is pretty good. 3/1 flyer. So after that, you just round out. I mean, another good turn 2 play is Geist of Saint Traft. I'm not sure if this is good enough in this deck because this deck doesn't have a ton of ways to remove it afterwards. Or to remove their blockers to make sure it gets through. So after you play it, it's hard to actually make sure it connects. But it is powerful. I think it's probably okay in a deck like this. It's possible you don't want 4. I expect it to get killed all the time, though. So we'll see. If I were to cut it, I'd probably play another Kitchen Finks, another Pridemage, something like that. But after that, yeah, you have the Kitchen Finks is good value. Neither Reliquary is great value in a deck like this, especially given that it's important to sometimes to fetch out mana for these. After that, like I said, Knight of the Rock's War Monk rounds it out. I think this card's just underplayed, and this is the right opportunity to give it a shot. I don't know if this card's good enough. It certainly hasn't been played a lot, but neither has a Bant deck. But I don't know. This is how we find out if a card like this is good. Moving on to the sideboard, you know, you're getting your pretty generic options. You basically every white deck's always gonna have Sony Silence. You're always gonna have some sort of mono red hate. We have Core Firewalker here and another Kitchen Finks with some more War Monks, which are great in that matchup. Um, you know, Scavenging Ooze, bringing in when you need it. Meddling Mage, bringing in against combo. Another Pride Mage and Rex Sage for decks for when you do that. Reflector Mage for some of the mid-range matchups. I think that this will be good. We'll see. I haven't tested it yet, but it seems like it'll fit. And then, of course, you know, round it out with these. So looking at the mana base, it's what you'd expect. You have to fetch breeding pools very aggressively, breeding pools and hallowed fountains, because it's very difficult to get to the triple blue. Obviously, the mana dorks help, but just something you have to keep in mind. Moving on for that, the only thing that really stands out is the Sajiri's Step. Now, this one's great. This is from Zendikar, or World Wake, I guess. When it comes into play, target creature gains protection from the color of your choice. So a lot of times somebody will go to kill your Knight of the Reliquary or kill one of your other guys on combat, and you just sacrifice a land, get Sajiri stacked, and just get them with the Knight of the Reliquary. It's an old standard trick that I think, at the very least, will be fun here in Modern. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give it a shot and just see. I don't know if this deck's any good or not, but I've played it, a handful of games in the past and had some success. So we'll see if Cryptic Command and Collected Company can exist in the same deck. See how it goes.